Hello and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to cover Planetary Exaltation and Debilitation, which is known as Ucca and Nicca in Sanskrit, and this is again from a Vedic astrology or Jyotish perspective. As you might know, I'm building a Vedic astrology Jyotish teaching video library. And so all of my teaching videos are in my concepts playlist. So if you're interested in learning, or if you miss a video, you can go there at any time. Before this video, I would recommend watching 3 other videos: North, South, East Indian style birth charts, Introduction to the Constellations or Rashi, and Introduction to Navigating a Birth Chart. Otherwise you might get a bit lost, but you never know. So but again, especially if you're really trying to build a solid foundation in your Jyotish knowledge and skill building, I'm trying to direct people to the right videos in the library. So instead of sort of scattershot learning this and that, which is possible, laying the foundation one layer at a time, I think tends to be best if that's possible. Okay, so let's talk about what is planet or graha exaltation debilitation, also known as Ucca and Nicca. Well, this is basically, it gives us a planetary condition, and it tells us for the planet condition if a planet is stronger or weaker. Okay, so when a planet is exalted, in exalted position, or Ucca, and Ucca means above, it is considered to be very strong, and as a strong planet, it's considered a strong exalted planet. It is considered to be more stable and predictable in delivering results, whatever results it's related to. Okay, this also means that the houses that this planet is involved with, so by position, so the house that the planet is in, the aspects, so the different ways that a planet kind of shines its light, and that's different depending on each planet, and even the houses or constellation that planet rules, so its rulership, house rulership, those are all stronger and more stable as well. Okay, so not just the planet, but the things it's related to. And then the other thing is, as an exalted planet, exalted planets tend to give more positive results. So, and this you have to qualify this, but in general, okay, not always, but in general, they tend to deliver more positive results. Okay, so the things that a planet represents, it tends to deliver the better things that a planet represents. So let's take Saturn. Saturn is a planet that's considered a natural malefic. It symbolizes things like structure, slowness. It can also represent things like poverty, for example. And also status-wise, Saturn on its own is not considered to be a planet related to high status. But if you get an exalted Saturn, then you would get results that are more related to proper structures rather than like a house that's built well as opposed to a house that's dilapidated, for example. Okay, just as one example with Saturn. Again, this is not always true, especially if a planet is what we call a Chidra Graha, or a planet of weakness. When you have an exalted planet, that doesn't necessarily deliver, because Chidra Grahas are used when we're looking at medical issues, and a Chidra Graha is considered a planet of weakness. So when you have really strong planets, from a medical perspective, that doesn't always deliver positive results. Okay, but in general, you tend to get the better side of the planet. And you can kind of think of it as when a planet is exalted, it tends to have more integrity. So when I think of a person that has integrity, they're a person who's trustworthy. I know what they're going to deliver. They're straightforward. I can count on them. They're upstanding. Like, they're going to do the right thing, like the best thing, even in, not the best circumstances. Yeah. So that's how I think about exalted planets. Now, in the opposite way, when a planet is in debilitated position, or we call this Nicca, which means below, the planet is considered to be very weak. The planet is generally less stable and less predictable. Okay, and the houses, again, the houses it is involved with, so by position, by aspect, by rulership, these things are also weaker and less stable as well. So, as an opposite to exaltation, planet in debilitated condition tends to give its more negative results. So the worst side of what the planet represents. So as I mentioned, I gave the example of Saturn that's exalted, giving you a properly structured house versus a dilapidated house. If Saturn is now debilitated, you would expect, if we're looking at houses and stuff, the house to be dilapidated, old, not in the best shape. Okay, so again, I tend to think of this as the planet has less integrity. You can't really count on it. And you definitely can't count on it to give you the best and the brightest of what it has to offer. So it's a little more shady, and it can be less desirable, but again, it depends on the position and other things. But in general, this is what we think of when we think of debilitated planets. Okay, so that's what that's sort of the meaning, significance of exaltation, debilitation. Now, how do you identify it in a chart? So, how do you identify it? So, the first thing you want to do is consider the natural zodiac. And I have a natural zodiac set up here. What is a natural zodiac? Well, a natural zodiac is you take, the first constellation of the zodiac, which is Aries, and you put it in the first house. Okay, so the constellations and the houses line up. Okay, so this is just for memory purposes. Okay, this is not in all charts. This is just for memory purposes. Okay, but you put Aries in the first house, which you can see the first house is this top diamond in the larger square of the chart. Okay, and the one in the corner represents the first constellation. Again, if this is already confusing to you, I would check out the other teaching videos I have so that you get up to speed on that, and this will all make a lot more sense. Okay, but I have a natural zodiac here, so Aries is in the first house, first constellation. Okay, so what I would recommend is that we have 4 different pairs of planets, or you can think of them as 4 different axes. Okay, so let's take the first pair here. So the first pair is Sun and Saturn. Excuse me. So Sun is exalted in Aries, or Mesha as it's called in Sanskrit. Saturn is exalted in the opposite sign of Libra, or Tula. Okay, so you can learn this, like Sun is exalted in the first, not the first house, the first constellation. So also make a note of that. This is based on constellation. The reason, again, why I'm putting the natural zodiac here is just so it's easy to learn and memorize, but you're going to have different charts with a different rising sign. Okay, so if this was a real chart, this would be an Aries ascendant, an Aries lugna, Aries in the first house, Aries and rising sign. Those are all different words for the same thing. If this was a Cancer rising chart, Sun would still be exalted in Aries, not in the first house. So if this is a Cancer chart, Cancer rising chart, Aries would then be in the 10th house. So it's not based on house, it's based on constellation. So make a note of that. That's really important. Okay, so the first pair is Sun, Saturn. Sun exalted in Aries, Saturn exalted in the opposite sign Libra. Then the next pair is Moon, Rahu, Ketu. Moon is exalted in Taurus or Vrishabha. Rahu, Ketu, again, those are the north and south nodes of the moon. Those are exalted in Scorpio, Vrishika. Okay, so you have this Moon, Rahu, Ketu axis going on. Then the next pair is Jupiter and Mars. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer or Karka. Mars is exalted in Capricorn or Makara. So you have this axis here, Jupiter, Mars. Then the last axis is Mercury, Venus. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Okay, so Virgo is Kanya, Pisces is Mina. What's interesting is Mercury is the only planet that's exalted in its own sign. So Mercury is the only planet that's exalted in Virgo, and Mercury also happens to own or lord or rule Virgo. So that's, a little bit unusual. So again, you can learn this is Saturn, Sun, Saturn, Moon, Rahu, Ketu, Jupiter, Mars as a pair or as an axis. Again, depending on whether you're more, what your learning style is as well. Okay, so it's all here. So that's exaltation. Now, to get the debilitated position for each planet, you take the opposite constellation to where it's exalted. So what does that mean? So, to find the moon, for example, the moon is exalted in Taurus. The opposite constellation to that is Scorpio. So moon will be debilitated in Scorpio. So all you do is like flip the axis or flip the planets. Okay, so if moon is exalted in Taurus, it's debilitated in Scorpio because Scorpio is the opposite constellation to Taurus. So if we take Jupiter, which is exalted in Cancer, the opposite constellation to Jupiter or to Cancer is Capricorn. So Jupiter will be debilitated in Capricorn. Okay, so what I would do is, again, learn these pairs, or if you want to learn them by axis, you can do that. Get them really good and solid in your mind. And then once they're solid in the mind, you just take the opposite constellation to find the debilitation position. Okay, so that's how you identify exaltation and debilitation in a Vedic astrology chart. So as always, thank you for your time. It's really great that's you're here and interested in learning Vedic astrology. It's much appreciated. So as always, I hope this helps you to learn more about Vedic astrology and learn how to navigate charts, and start to learn. I just think it's so fascinating. I mean, that's what kind of drew me into astrology generally, not just Vedic astrology, but it's sort of magical in a way that by looking at these charts, you can learn so much about the sky patterns and where planets and stars sit. It's pretty fascinating. So in any case, I hope you found this helpful in your learning process. And until the next one, take care. Namaste.